Monosaccharides are the simplest carbohydrates. They are the monomers that are used to build more complex carbohydrates. The most common of these are glucose and fructose. Disaccharides are formed by combining two monosaccharides. Table sugar, for instance, sucrose, is made up of glucose and fructose. Polysaccharides are formed by combining chains of many monosaccharides. Monosaccharides are the simplest sugars. Their names typically end in OSE. Examples include glucose and fructose. The basic rules of simple sugars are as fuel to do work, the raw materials for carbon backbones, the monomers from which larger carbohydrates are synthesized. Fruits and some vegetables are natural sources of fructose and glucose. Sugars all have many polar hydroxyl groups in their structure. That makes them soluble in water. These drawings show the single and double bonds of two monosaccharides, but do not show their three-dimensional forms. There are other ways to represent the molecules. Organic molecules are difficult to visualize on paper because they are three-dimensional and complex. There are several ways to draw them. We'll just show three methods with brief explanations: straight line, skeletal or line angle, and Haworth projections. The simplest diagram shows all the atoms and bonds in the molecule and does not describe the 3D configuration. Single bonds are represented by one line, double bonds by two lines, and triple bonds by three lines. Contrast the diagram of this glucose molecule with the one on the next slide. Here is a skeletal or line angle diagram of glucose. A carbon atom is assumed to be at each vertex of the central figure. Single bonds are single lines, double bonds are double lines, and triple bonds are triple lines. When there are less than 4 bonds at a vertex, there are assumed to be enough hydrogen atoms to form 4 bonds with the carbon there. Wedge lines show a bond coming out of the page, dashed lines show a bond going into the page, and wavy lines indicate atoms present that are omitted from the diagram. Here is a Haworth projection of glucose. The numbers represent the carbon atoms. You will see the numbers again when DNA is discussed. H atoms are not indicated, but are understood to be attached to the carbon atoms when there are not 4 bonds shown. The thicker lines provide perspective by showing that the atoms are closer to the viewer. In solution, sugars form cyclic structures that can connect to form chains of sugars. So here we see fructose and glucose forming sucrose. Cells link two simple sugars together to form disaccharides. Disaccharide formation is another example of a dehydration synthesis reaction. The most common disaccharide is sucrose, which is fructose plus glucose.